Fleet Commander Jax'Valar drummed his six-fingered hand against the command console, his secondary eyelids flicking with impatience as he observed the blue-green planet below. Earth. Just another primitive rock to add to the Krexian Dominion's ever-expanding collection of conquered worlds. 37 systems conquered without so much as breaking a sweat gland, he announced to his bridge crew, stretching his neck ridges in what passed for a Krexian smile. Anyone want to place bets on how quickly these humans surrender? I've got 20 Krexi credits that say they'll be begging for mercy within 6 hours of our first demonstration. His second-in-command, Tactical Officer Nev Bar, didn't look up from her display. Sir, with all due respect, perhaps we shouldn't be so quick to. Oh, come now, Nev Bar. Where's your sense of adventure? Your appreciation for the art of conquest? Jax'Valar spun his command chair, giving a theatrical sigh that made his throat sack inflate dramatically. You've seen our intelligence reports. These humans still use combustion engines. They haven't even mastered simple gravity manipulation. Their most advanced weapons are essentially just metal projectiles propelled by chemical explosions. Primitive, agreed Communications Officer Pelzin, his mandibles clicking in amusement. Their entire global network runs on electricity. One electromagnetic pulse and their civilization crumbles. Jax'Valar gestured toward the view screen showing Earth's night side, city lights twinkling like stars. Look at them, dependent on burning hydrocarbons for energy. Meanwhile, we're literally bending the laws of physics with our phase shields and dark matter engines. He stood up, stretching to his full 3-meter height, his scaled skin catching the light of the command bridge. Prepare the diplomatic vessel. Standard procedure. We show them our technological superiority, they surrender, we establish a protectorate government, and we're home in time for the spawning season. Sir, Nev Bar interrupted, her voice tense enough to make Jax'Valar's head crest rise in attention. You should see this. Jax'Valar sauntered over to her station, the picture of casual confidence. What now? Have they detected us? Are they sending adorable radio signals begging for interstellar friendship? No, sir. They've activated defensive systems. Well, of course they have. Their primitive sensors probably picked up our arrival when we dropped out of slipspace. It's just a standard defensive response. Jax'Valar waved a dismissive hand. That's not what concerns me, sir. Nev Bar's voice dropped lower. Their defensive systems. They're specifically configured to counter our approach vectors and our shield frequencies. For the first time since entering Earth's solar system, Jax'Valar felt a twinge of unease crawl up his spine ridge. That's impossible. They couldn't possibly know our tactical specifications. His eyes narrowed as he studied the data scrolling across Nev Bar's screen. Run a diagnostic on your sensors. They must be malfunctioning. Already did, sir. Twice. The humans have deployed countermeasures that appear specifically designed to neutralize Krexian technology. Jax'Valar's head crest flattened against his skull as he stared at the seemingly peaceful planet below. How could they possibly? Sir, called Pelzin from Communications, his normally steady voice wavering. We're receiving a transmission. From Earth. Put it through. The main view screen shifted from the view of Earth to the image of a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her expression was calm, professional, and most disturbingly not at all surprised. Greetings, Fleet Commander Jax'Valar of the Krexian Dominion, she said in perfect, unaccented Krexian language. We've been expecting you. The bridge fell dead silent as every Krexian officer froze in shock. Jax'Valar felt his secondary heart skip a beat. Something was very, very wrong. This is clearly a trick, Nev Bar insisted as the diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. How could they possibly know your name? Or our language? Jax'Valar adjusted his ceremonial armor, trying to project confidence he no longer entirely felt. Perhaps they intercepted communications from other worlds we've conquered. Or maybe they have rudimentary telepathic abilities our scouts missed. Regardless, the diplomatic approach proceeds as planned. And if it's a trap? asked Ambassador Tolmarik, the oldest member of their diplomatic team and the only one who seemed genuinely curious rather than concerned. Then we demonstrate why the Krexian Dominion has never lost a war, Jax'Valar replied, patting the concealed disruptor beneath his ceremonial robes. And why I personally have never lost a battle. The shuttle touched down at the designated landing zone, a massive military complex the humans called the Pentagon. Jax'Valar couldn't help but snort at the primitive design. Only 5 sides. Krexian command centers had 17, each representing one of their conquered galactic sectors. As the diplomatic team disembarked, they were greeted by a small contingent of human military personnel, led by a female with short silver hair and a chest full of colorful decorations. She stood perfectly straight, hands clasped behind her back, watching the Krexians with what appeared to be casual interest. "Fleet Commander Jax'Valar," she said, her pronunciation of his name flawless. "I am General Meredith Blackwood, Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our humble planet." Her lips curved upward slightly. "We hope your journey through the Cygnus Orion arm was pleasant." Jax'Valar felt his neck ridges stiffen. The human had just casually referenced their exact route through the galaxy. "General Blackwood," he replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. "On behalf of the Krexian Dominion, I bring greetings and an offer of protection." "How thoughtful," Blackwood responded, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Please follow me. We have a conference room prepared. Coffee and refreshments await. We even synthesized some krill nectar, which I understand is a delicacy on your homeworld." Jax'Valar exchanged alarmed glances with Tolmarik. Krill nectar was indeed a Krexian delicacy, but one specific to a certain province on their homeworld. A homeworld that was 17 light-years away and had never had contact with humans. The conference room was large and circular, with a round table made of polished wood. Primitive, but elegant in its simplicity. As the Krexian delegation took their seats, Blackwood remained standing. "Before we begin formal discussions about this protection you're offering," she said, activating what appeared to be a holographic display in the center of the table, "I thought you might be interested in something we've been working on." The hologram displayed a detailed schematic of a Krexian warship. Not just any warship. Jax'Valar's flagship. "As you can see," Blackwood continued conversationally, as if discussing the weather, "we've identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in your shield matrix. Particularly interesting is this junction here." She pointed to a specific section of the engine core. "Apply the right electromagnetic frequency, and your dark matter containment fails spectacularly. We estimate total ship destruction in what was it, Dr. Patel?" A human male in a lab coat spoke up from the corner. "Approximately 3.7 seconds, General." Jax'Valar shot to his feet, hand reaching for his concealed weapon. "What is the meaning of this? How did you obtain these schematics?" Blackwood's expression remained unnervingly calm. "Oh, we've been studying the Krexian Dominion for decades, Commander. Ever since your scout ships started probing our outer solar system 30 years ago." She tilted her head. "Did you think we wouldn't notice?" Tolmarik, the elderly ambassador, suddenly laughed. Not the reaction Jax'Valar expected. "Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. You humans are full of surprises." "You have no idea," Blackwood replied, pressing another button on the table. Instantly, Jax'Valar felt his limbs grow heavy. "A gravitational field. But localized to affect only the Krexians? That discomfort you're feeling," Blackwood explained, "is a targeted graviton field calibrated specifically to Krexian physiology. Your species evolved on a planet with 0.8 Earth gravity. We're currently subjecting you to 1.5 times Earth normal. Uncomfortable for us, nearly incapacitating for you." With tremendous effort, Jax'Valar managed to grasp his disruptor, only to find it completely dead. "Energy dampening field?" "Precisely," Blackwood nodded. "Now, let's discuss the actual terms of surrender. Your surrender, to be clear." With a surge of desperate strength, Jax'Valar activated his emergency beacon. Within seconds, the conference room windows shattered as Krexian extraction drones burst in, firing smoke grenades. "This isn't over," Jax'Valar gasped as a drone lifted him toward the broken window. The last thing he saw before being extracted was General Blackwood's face, still wearing that slight, knowing smile. "Oh, I'm counting on that, Commander. We've been preparing for this war for a very long time." Back aboard his flagship, Jax'Valar paced the command deck, his head crest rising and falling with agitation. Medical officers hovered nearby, ready to administer treatment for the effects of the enhanced gravity field, but he waved them away. "They knew everything," he hissed, slamming a fist onto the tactical display. "Our language, our physiology, our shield frequencies, even our blasted favorite beverages." Nevbar, who had stayed aboard to command the fleet during the diplomatic mission, approached cautiously. "Sir, Intelligence Division has been analyzing the data we collected during the encounter. They've found something concerning. More concerning than humans knowing how to disable our ships in under 4 seconds. Jax'Valar's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Please, enlighten me about this new catastrophe." "Our long-range scanners detected unusual communications traffic between Earth's military installations. We managed to decrypt some of it." She hesitated. "They mentioned something called Project Artemis." Repeatedly. Tolmarik, who had recovered faster than the others from the gravitational assault, joined them at the tactical display. Despite the dire situation, the old ambassador seemed almost amused. In Earth mythology, Artemis was a hunter goddess, a predator of formidable skill. "Spare me the xenoanthropology lesson," Jax'Valar snapped. "What is Project Artemis?" Nevbar activated the main view screen, displaying intercepted human communications data. "Not what, sir?" "Who?" The screen showed surveillance footage of a human training facility. At the center of the image was a female human with close-cropped dark hair, surrounded by what appeared to be Krexian technology. She moved with unexpected grace, manipulating Krexian control interfaces with the ease of a native. Lieutenant Avery Hawthorne, Nevbar, read from the data. "According to these files, she's their weapon against us." Jax'Valar stared at the image, his confusion evident. "A single human? That's their secret weapon? She doesn't even look particularly impressive for their species." "Sir," Communications Officer Pelzine interrupted. "We've found something else. Records from 30 years ago. You're going to want to see this." The view screen shifted to grainy footage from a Krexian scout ship. The timestamp showed a date exactly 31 years prior. "These are logs from the exploratory vessel Dreknar," Pelzine explained. "It was one of 3 scout ships sent to this system to assess Earth for potential conquest. All 3 disappeared. We assumed they were lost to asteroid collisions or solar flares. The footage showed the Krexian scout ship's bridge in chaos, emergency lights flashing, crew members scrambling. A boarding alarm sounded. Then, shockingly, humans in primitive spacesuits burst onto the bridge, wielding weapons that fired not projectiles, but some kind of energy pulse specifically calibrated to disrupt Krexian neural patterns. "They captured our scout ships," Jax'Valar whispered, his voice a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. 30 years ago. They've had access to our technology for 3 decades. "Not just our technology," Tolmarik added grimly. "According to these records, they captured crew members alive." The footage continued, showing the humans efficiently subduing the Krexian crew using techniques that exploited known Krexian physiological weaknesses. "How could they possibly have known our vulnerabilities back then?" Jax'Valar demanded. Nevbar's voice was quiet. "The leading theory, sir? They'd been studying us even before that. This may not have been our first contact with Earth." The view screen shifted back to footage of Lieutenant Hawthorne. This time, she was in what appeared to be a combat simulation, fighting against mechanical drones designed to mimic Krexian warriors. She anticipated every move, exploiting weaknesses in Krexian combat patterns that even Jax'Valar wasn't fully aware of. According to these files, Nevbar continued, Hawthorne was selected as an infant for Project Artemis. She was raised from childhood by their military, using knowledge extracted from captured Krexian databases and prisoners. She paused, looking uncomfortable. She was literally engineered to understand how we think, sir, to predict our strategies, to exploit our psychological tendencies. Jax'Valar watched as the human on screen took down 3 Krexian combat drones simultaneously, using techniques that seemed impossible for a being without Krexian reflexes. They created a human who thinks like a Krexian, he said slowly, but still has human unpredictability. It gets worse, sir, Pelzian added. The files indicate she wasn't the only one. She was simply the most successful. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Commander Jax'Valar felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear. Commence attack pattern Dominion Sigma 7, Jax'Valar ordered, his voice steady despite the unease churning in his gut. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each officer executing their role in the choreographed dance of Krexian warfare that had conquered 37 star systems. The view screen displayed Earth's orbital defense platforms, primitive by Krexian standards. This should be easy. Overwhelming. It's a textbook conquest. First wave deployed, sir, reported the weapons officer. 300 fighter drones approaching Earth's defensive line. Jax'Valar leaned back in his command chair. This was familiar territory. Begin with autonomous fighters to test defenses, follow with capital ships to eliminate key military targets, then land ground forces to secure surrender. The humans may have captured a few scout ships, may have studied Krexian technology, but nothing could prepare them for the full might of a Dominion battle fleet. Sir, Nevbar's voice cut through his confidence. Something's wrong. On the tactical display, the first wave of fighter drones was disintegrating. Not in the chaotic pattern of being shot down by defensive fire, but in perfect, synchronized groups. As if. They're targeting our command frequencies, Nevbar reported, fingers flying across her console. Somehow they've identified the exact transmission patterns we use to coordinate drone swarms. Jax'Valar's head crest flattened against his skull, switched to secondary control protocols, to deploy second wave with randomized command structures. Already on it, sir. But the tension in Nevbar's voice told him what he already suspected: it wouldn't be enough. The second wave of fighters met the same fate, neutralized with terrifying efficiency. Earth's defense platforms weren't even targeting individual fighters, they were broadcasting precisely calibrated signals that triggered catastrophic system failures in Krexian technology. Deploy capital ships, Jax'Valar ordered, abandoning the standard attack sequence. Full shields, weapons hot. Target their primary defense platforms. 5 Krexian warships, each capable of reducing a continent to ash, moved into attack formation. This was no longer about conquest, it was about survival, sir. Pelzian called out from communications. The humans are broadcasting on all Krexian frequencies. It's directed specifically at our crews. Before Jax'Valar could respond, the ship's speakers crackled to life with a sound that sent shivers down his spine ridges, the low, ululating cry of a Krexian funeral dirge, played at precisely the frequency known to trigger ancestral fear responses in Krexian brain chemistry. What in the 7 hells? He snarled, watching as his crew visibly flinched, several younger officers clutching their head crests in distress. The dirge abruptly cut off, replaced by a human voice speaking perfect High Krexian, the dialect reserved for military commanders. Fleet Commander Jax'Valar, the voice said, almost playful in its confidence. I must say your attack patterns are exactly as the simulations predicted. Down to the second, actually. It's almost disappointing. Jax'Valar felt his blood run cold. He recognized that voice from the intelligence files. Lieutenant Hawthorne. The very same, she replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice. You know, we've been running simulations of this exact battle for 15 years. I've personally defeated your attack strategies over 7,000 times. In simulations, of course. But today, I must say, the real thing is so much more satisfying. On the tactical display, 2 of his capital ships suddenly veered off course, their engines flaring erratically. Sir, the weapons officer shouted. The Dreadnought and the Subjugator are experiencing complete helm failure. Their navigational systems are being overridden somehow. Hawthorne's voice continued, cool and clinical. Your ships use a dual redundant navigation system with quantum encryption. Very impressive. But did you know there's a backdoor access port in the tertiary maintenance subroutines? We found it 26 years ago. Been saving that little trick for a special occasion. The two affected warships were now on a collision course with each other. Jax'Valar watched in horror as their emergency protocols failed to activate. Fascinating thing about Krexian military psychology, Hawthorne continued conversationally. You're so reliant on hierarchical command structures. Cut off the head, the body flounders. But humans? We thrive on chaos. Adapt to it. Embrace it. The two massive warships collided in a spectacular explosion that temporarily blinded the viewscreen sensors. You can't possibly understand our psychology this completely, Jax'Valar growled, trying to maintain control of the rapidly deteriorating situation. No human could. Oh, but I'm not just any human, Commander, Hawthorne replied. While you were conquering those 37 systems, I was living and breathing Krexian psychology. Your cultural texts, your military doctrine, even your childhood fables, they were my bedtime stories. I've spent more time thinking like a Krexian than some of your own junior officers. Another ship, the Light of Conquest, suddenly reported critical shield failures as Earth's defense platforms focused their fire with surgical precision. You see, Commander, Hawthorne continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow cut through the chaos on the bridge, the difference between us isn't technology. It's that I understand how you think. But you have absolutely no idea how I think. Jax'Valar stared at the tactical display, watching his overwhelming force crumble against what should have been an inferior enemy. For the first time in his military career, he gave the order he never thought he'd utter. All ships, full retreat. Disengage immediately. The Emergency War Council aboard the flagship was a grim affair. Of the 12 capital ships that had entered Earth's orbit, only 7 remained operational. 3 had been destroyed outright, and 2 more had suffered critical damage requiring extensive repairs. Jax'Valar surveyed the faces of his surviving commanders on the holographic display. Some bore physical injuries from the battle. All bore the unmistakable signs of psychological shock. This, he began, his voice deliberately steady, is an unprecedented situation. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Dominion has never experienced a defeat of this magnitude. It wasn't a battle, growled Commander Rex Sovar of the battlecruiser Inevitable Victory, his scarred face twisted in rage. It was a humiliation. They toyed with us. They predicted every move, added Commander Zernalan, whose ship had barely escaped the engagement zone. It was as if they could see inside our tactical databases. Tolmarek, the elderly ambassador who had insisted on attending despite protocol, cleared his throat. Perhaps they could. All eyes turned to the old Krexian. Despite not being a military officer, his centuries of diplomatic experience gave his words weight. Our initial intelligence on Earth's defensive capabilities, Tolmarek continued, lifting a data tablet. It was remarkably detailed, remarkably accurate, and remarkably wrong. Jax'Valar narrowed his eyes. Explain. The information we gathered indicated Earth had orbital defense platforms with limited range and primitive targeting systems. We believed their weapons were kinetic-based, incapable of penetrating our phase shields. The old diplomat's crest flattened in thought. Yet in battle, they revealed energy weapons perfectly calibrated to our shield frequencies and targeting systems of unprecedented accuracy. You're suggesting they deliberately leaked false intelligence, Nebbar said. Not just leaked it, Tolmarek replied. Crafted it specifically to encourage exactly the attack pattern we employed. The command chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They wanted us to attack exactly as we did, Jax'Valar said finally. They designed a trap, and we flew straight into it. There's more, Pelzin spoke up from his communications station. We've been analyzing the target selection patterns used by Earth's defense platforms. They weren't targeting our ships at random or even based on threat assessment. He projected a tactical replay onto the central hullable. The visualization showed Earth's weapons systematically targeting specific sections of Krexian ships, but not the most vulnerable or dangerous sections. They were targeting our evacuation and life support systems, Pelzin explained. Deliberately. That makes no tactical sense, objected Commander Jax'Valar. Why target systems that pose no direct threat? Because, Jax'Valar said slowly, a cold realization dawning, they weren't trying to destroy us. They were trying to capture us. Just like they captured those scout ships 30 years ago. Nevbar's eyes widened. They want more test subjects, more Krexian minds to study. The room erupted in angry chittering as the commanders processed this horrifying possibility. Silence. Jax'Valar commanded, rising to his full height. We face an adversary unlike any the Dominion has encountered before. An enemy that has studied us for decades, that understands not just our technology but our psychology. He paused, looking at each commander in turn. And I find, despite everything, I cannot help but respect their strategic brilliance. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Respect them? Commander Zernalan spat. These primitives? Yes, Jax'Valar said firmly. They anticipated our every move, leaked exactly the information that would lead us into a trap, and executed a battle plan that neutralized our overwhelming technological advantage. His head crest rose in determination. And if we are to have any hope of surviving this encounter, we must learn to think as they do, unpredictably, adaptively. He turned to the tactical display, where Earth still hung in the darkness, deceptively peaceful. For the first time, he said quietly, I believe we may have encountered a species more dangerous than our own. This plan is insanity, Nevbar said, not bothering to hide her dismay as she stood in Jax'Valar's private command chamber. We should be retreating to Dominion space, gathering reinforcements. Reinforcements would just mean more ships for them to capture or destroy. Jax'Valar replied, studying the holographic terrain map of the Earth military base designated Artemis Command. They've proven they can counter our conventional tactics. Our only hope is to do something they won't expect. And you believe a direct assault on their command center is unexpected? Nevbar's voice dripped with skepticism. It's suicidal. Not an assault, Jax'Valar corrected. An extraction. Small team, minimal footprint, single objective. He zoomed in on one section of the complex. We capture Lieutenant Hawthorne. Their weapon becomes our asset. Even if we succeed, what makes you think she would help us? Jax'Valar's head crest rose in a grim smile. Everyone has psychological vulnerabilities. Even humans engineered to exploit ours. 12 hours later, under the cover of Earth's night, a stealth shuttle pierced the atmosphere, its heat signature masked by advanced cloaking technology. Jax'Valar himself led the 6-member strike team in unprecedented action for a fleet commander, but these were unprecedented circumstances. Approaching drop zone, the pilot announced, no signs of detection. That should have been Jax'Valar's first warning. The humans had demonstrated near omniscient awareness of Krexian movements. The absence of response wasn't success, it was suspicious. The shuttle touched down 3 kilometers from the Artemis facility. The strike team deployed, moving through dense forest with practiced stealth. Everything proceeded according to plan. No alarms, no response forces, no orbital targeting. It was too easy. Hold position, Jax'Valar ordered as they reached the edge of the forest, the facility's perimeter fence visible ahead. This is wrong. They should have detected us by now. Perhaps their intelligence isn't as perfect as we feared, suggested his second-in-command. Or perhaps, came a familiar voice from behind them, you're exactly where we want you to be. The strike team whirled around, weapons raised, to find Lieutenant Avery Hawthorne leaning casually against a tree. She wore a simple Earth military uniform with no visible weapons or protection. Her short dark hair framed a face that looked almost bored. "I'd suggest not firing those disruptors," she said conversationally. "The area is saturated with a catalytic gas that causes your weapon's energy cells to destabilize rather spectacularly." She smiled. Unless, of course, you're feeling suicidal." Jax'Valar stared at her in disbelief. "How did you know we were coming?" Hawthorne laughed, the sound strangely musical. "Fleet Commander, I've been inside your head since before you entered this solar system. Your decision to lead this mission yourself? Predicted. Your choice of landing zone? Selected for you through subtle electromagnetic nudges to your navigation systems. Your exact path through these woods?" She gestured around them. "We've been herding you like, what's that Krexian expression?" "Ah, yes, tending brood lizards in the spawning season." The casual use of a Krexian idiom, one specific to his home province, sent a chill through Jax'Valar's spine. "Your team is currently surrounded by 23 Earth Special Forces operatives," Hawthorne continued. "They've been instructed to use non-lethal measures where possible, but they will respond with lethal force if necessary." She tilted her head. "I'd prefer to avoid that. I find your species fascinating." "What do you want?" Jax'Valar asked, lowering his weapon. The other team members followed his lead, recognizing the futility of resistance. "A conversation," Hawthorne replied, gesturing to a small clearing. "Just you and me." Against all protocol and sense, Jax'Valar found himself following her. They sat on fallen logs across from each other like equals. "You're not what I expected," he admitted after a moment of silence. "What did you expect? A monster? A biological weapon?" Hawthorne's smile was surprisingly gentle. "In a way, I suppose I am both those things. But I'm also human." "How?" Jax'Valar asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his military training. "How could you possibly understand Krexian psychology so completely?" "Your scout ships," she explained. "When we captured them, we didn't just gain access to your technology. We gained access to your cultural database, your history, your literature, your psychology texts, even your entertainment programs." Her eyes gleamed with genuine enthusiasm. "Did you know your species' evolutionary history is remarkably similar to ours in some ways? The same selection pressures that made humans adaptable made Krexians hierarchical. Both successful strategies, just different. And they raised you from infancy to understand this? To think like us?" "Project Artemis," Hawthorne nodded. "I wasn't the first attempt. There were others before me who couldn't handle the cognitive dissonance of thinking like two species simultaneously. But I thrived on it." "So you're a weapon," Jax'Valar said. "I prefer specialized strategic asset," she replied with a small grin. "But yes, essentially. Earth's military raised me to think like a Krexian, to understand your hierarchical decision-making, your predictable tactical doctrines, your psychological vulnerabilities. But they couldn't remove my human nature. And that's why you're so effective," Jax'Valar realized. "You understand us perfectly, but we cannot possibly understand you." "Precisely. Krexians evolved for stability, predictability, hierarchy, and humans evolved for chaos, adaptation, unpredictability. I can think like you when needed, but you can never truly think like me." She leaned forward. "And that's why your invasion was doomed before it began." Jax'Valar felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. "What happens now?" "Now?" Hawthorne stood, brushing off her uniform. "Now you deliver a message to the Dominion. Earth is not a conquest. It's not a colony. It's not a protectorate." Her voice took on a harder edge. "It's a warning. The species that awaits at the edge of your expansion isn't defenseless. We've been watching, learning, preparing. And if you return with a larger fleet?" She smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it now. "We'll be ready for that too." As if on cue, the forest around them lit up with spotlights, revealing not just the promised 23 Special Forces operatives, but hundreds of Earth soldiers, all armed with weapons clearly designed specifically to target Krexian physiology. "Your shuttle will be allowed to depart," Hawthorne said. With you and your team aboard, unharmed, consider it a diplomatic courtesy. Why let us go? Jax'Valar asked, standing to face her. You could end this threat now. Because Fleet Commander, she replied, the most effective weapon against the Krexian Dominion isn't our technology or even our tactics. It's fear. The fear of an enemy you cannot predict or understand. You'll deliver that message far more effectively than we ever could. As Jax'Valar and his team were escorted back to their shuttle, he found himself looking back at Lieutenant Hawthorne, the human who thought like a Krexian but wasn't bound by Krexian limitations. She watched him go with those strange, alien eyes that somehow saw right through him. For the first time in the Krexian Dominion's long history of expansion, they had encountered a species they could not conquer. Not because of superior technology or numbers, but because of a fundamental incompatibility of thought. The humans had created the perfect weapon against the Krexian mind, one that understood it completely, but remained forever beyond its comprehension. And as their shuttle broke Earth's atmosphere to return to the waiting fleet, Jax'Valar knew with absolute certainty that the age of Krexian expansion had come to an end. They had finally met their match, a species that had raised the ultimate counter to their invasion, a human who thought like them, but wasn't one of them. A predator designed specifically to hunt Krexians. And Artemis,